G'day and welcome to the Campfire Project. Today I'm here with Crook, who is a certified integrative nutritional health coach, holding space consultant and certified birth doula and certified Spanish medical interpreter. Welcome to the Campfire Project, Anne.
Thank you, Alan. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And we've got Jenny Ryce, who is a mindset strategist and accredited executive coach, international speaker and host of the podcast, Winning with Wellness. How are you, Jenny?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Alan, and obviously to the other panelists. Thrilled to be here with you, ladies.
Thank you. And we have Melissa Dealey, who is an integrative health practitioner. Welcome to the Campfire Project, Melissa.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you.
Excellent. Now, we've been talking about the subject for today, and Melissa, you suggested mastering your unconscious mind to master your emotions. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant topic. Would you like to start us off in the discussion? Tell us what you mean by that title.
What I mean by that title is literally learning the power of our unconscious mind, and that we can learn how to master it. And our unconscious mind is responsible for so much that's going on inside our body, keeping us safe, making sure we're breathing, digesting our food, all of these things that we don't give a moment's thought to. How often does anyone stop and think about their unconscious mind and what it's doing? We think about our conscious mind and we spend a lot of time in our conscious mind thinking, planning, strategizing, etc., calculating. We forget about the unconscious mind, and yet it is the larger portion of our mind. If you think about a huge iceberg floating on the ocean, much of it is under the water and you just see a small part of it above the water. Well, that's your conscious mind, and that's 10% of your brain power, so to speak, your mind power. Your unconscious mind is everything below the water, and that's 90%, right? And when we can master our unconscious mind, we can allow ourselves a stress-free mind because we know how to work with our mind. And that can then lead to a disease-free body because we know so much of stress triggers diseases, etc., right? But when we're stress-free, we have so much more resilience. We can manage our emotions in a much more effective way instead of being, feeling like we're in a dryer, being thrown around by our emotions and our emotions are out of control. We can actually release the baggage of the negative emotions that we might have been carrying around since our young childhood and move forward in a place of being able to process our emotions, know why we're feeling what we're feeling, and processing it, knowing it's okay to feel that and letting it go through our body and out. And so that's the power of our unconscious mind, is stepping into that understanding that we have the ability to do that. It's just not something that's taught in schools or in, through our medical system, even through the workplace. And in many respects, it's new knowledge, in the last 50 years that it started to come out. And it's very, very powerful. So I love this topic, and I love having both Anne and Jenny here, Jenny with the mindset coach and Anne being holding space, because it just all ties together so beautifully.
That's exactly right. And so, Jenny, can you add on to that for us, please?
I'd love to. Some people might also hear the unconscious mind is your subconscious mind. Regardless, it's the space that we actually think we're not thinking. So we've all heard the term autopilot, right? We've all been, got in the car and got to a location and can't quite remember how we got there. That's really our subconscious mind moving us in that direction because we know how to do it. We do it all the time and don't think about it. What's fascinating is we have this internal dialogue that goes on subconsciously that usually, unfortunately, is a saboteur type dialogue. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I have 1,000 emails. I'm not capable. I don't have enough time. And what happens is when we think about that on repeat constantly, it's eroding our own success, realistically, health, emotion, high functioning at work, because it's creating space and negative energy in our lives. So when we think about, in my passion, of course, is mindset. When we think about our mindset, if we can bring that to the conscious bring that forward so we can look at what's happening, what we're saying, the kind of conversation that we're having, then we can start creating change. And neural pathways are an amazing thing. For some of us, it's a new buzzword. I'm not a scientist, so just going to put that out there right here, right now. However, I do know that our brain creates pathways to make life easy for us. So if we can interrupt our brain highway and put a detour sign in to something more positive, we really are in this space of power, shall we say. Our mind is a powerful tool. And I love, that you shared that, Melissa. We're not using a huge portion of it. So let's step in and really look at tackling that as an ally and bringing it forward in our ability to change, create new habits and those kind of things.
And Anne, how have you found that in the work that you're doing?
Well, I want to piggyback on what both Jenny and Melissa said. I love the topic of neuroplasticity. I can geek out on that all day because our brain is totally workable. We can change those neural pathways, as Jenny was saying. And one of the ways I do that to support my clients is through holding space, because I often find that our subconscious mind comes through the wounded inner child, or the body self, I like to call it. Those emotions that live in our body, as we know, our issues are stored in our tissues. And so when we have the courage to lean into those emotions and turn towards that felt sensation in the body with curiosity versus judgment, with loving, compassionate presence, and giving it voice and allowing that part of us to speak, so much deep healing can happen. And what I have found with my clients is that oftentimes people struggle with chronic health issues and create dis-ease. I like to say dis-ease instead of disease, because the body's not in ease, it's out of ease. And when we learn to hold space and turn towards those emotions, and we find deeper meaning making, and we integrate those emotions into our life versus suppressing them, something major happens where we shift into a place of profound self-love. We find deeper meaning in the adversity we've been through, and then we can move forward with a new sense of greater purpose. And so I like to blend that with my health coaching, because I've found that if we just talk about nutrition and lifestyle all day, but we don't address the subconscious or the emotions, then the body's not going to heal. And the body shifts into a parasympathetic healing state when we're in a place of self-love and we're actually integrating those emotions.
Because we are a combination of all of our experience. So everything that we've had through our life is in that unconscious area. And
Yes.
it's virtually, as you say, if we're not looking at it, that's what we don't look at is usually controlling us. And
Right.
So we've got
Exactly.
those issues there. So, and by the way, ladies, at any time, if there's something you want to say, just jump in and keep it as a conversation. Just wait for me to ask you questions along the way as well. Which
I'm going to jump in right there with a couple of things that you've said. Is you're absolutely right. I liken our unconscious mind to a filing cabinet, and it literally files every single experience in our life without any judgment. It just gets filed, and it starts to create filters in how we make future decisions. And so here's, for those that are sciencey that want to geek out a little bit, our brain takes in 12.8 billion kilobytes of information per second, that there's no way it can deal with that, right? So it has to delete and distort and generalize it down into a size that it can work with, which is only 128 to 135 kilobytes per second, right? So it does that through these filters. And these filters are what we develop through our life. So they're coming from our parents, our values, our morals, our ethics, plus our past experiences, time. There's all of these different filters that we process things through. And then that then shows how we respond to something or how we might react. And so an interesting story as an example is you have 3 little girls walking through a park and a snake slithers across the path. And one little girl goes, "Ah, snake," and runs away. And another little girl goes, "Oh, the snake's going to get stepped on here. Let me pick you up and put you in the grass over here where people aren't walking." And the third little girl goes, does nothing, right? So they've all had the exact same experience, but they've responded in 3 different ways because of how the unconscious mind has processed that incident based on their filters.
That's
So the girl that screams has been taught to fear snakes, or that snakes are poisonous and dangerous and stay away. The girl that moved the snake, well, she maybe loves all creatures and, maybe lives on a farm and sees snakes all the time and wants to keep everything safe. And the third child maybe has never actually experienced a snake, so didn't have a filter yet, right? And so it's fascinating how each of our individual brains are literally creating our own reality in this way. And interestingly, I learned recently that this is why now, at least in Canada, the RCMP will not use eyewitnesses for traffic accidents in court, because they could have 3 eyewitnesses that all tell 3 different stories based on their filters.
That's what they usually find when they do that investigation. They're looking for similarities where all of them will say something, and that's the only part they can look at where everyone have said the same thing. Everything else is distorted, generalized, and deleted, as you've said.
Based on the filters. So we literally can create our own reality. We're doing it every single day without realizing it. But what's amazing about that is, as we've alluded to, we can then change our reality as well, and change the way we view things, change the emotions that we feel around things by changing that neural pathway, or the highway, as Jenny mentioned. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on too was, we have 4 bodies. So our spiritual body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our physical body. And when we have symptoms or dis-ease show up in the physical body, it's already moved through the other 3 bodies. And so to Anne's point, if we want true and lasting recovery for people, we have to address more than just the physical body, or we end up right back where we were, because the emotional and the mental and the spiritual bodies are unhappy and not being addressed.
And I want to add to what Melissa just said there. One of the fastest ways to do that is to bypass the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain, and go back into the limbic brain, which is in the back where we store our emotions, or the reptilian brain. And there are really wonderful therapies out there that go right into that part of the brain, which is EMDR, as many people know about, or brain spotting. Those are 2 types of trauma therapy that are highly effective. And then, of course, there's the holding space that I was talking about earlier.
And then there's also, in addition to that, timeline therapy, which I'm now trained in, and hypnotherapy. Both of them are also bypassing it. And that's when we can, we peel back the layers of the onion, and we can get deep, deep transformation happening when we bypass that. I call it the critical faculty. And if you're talking to someone and it's just what you're saying is just bouncing right off them, it's their critical faculty going, no thanks, not ready to listen to that. So you do need to bypass it in order for the techniques to be effective.
When you look at a newborn child, the frontal cortex is being used the most, that thinking side. That's where they're doing their learning. And so I think that's where things start to get anchored at that point. We are the combination of all of our experiences, but we already start with particular memories anyway that were passed down the DNA from our parents, because they're stored in every cell of the body. Then from there, that's our nature traits. And then we have our nurture traits that develop from there, which is our response to our environment. But the response to the environment is things that are happening today and have happened before up to this point, but also what's been passed down from the parents as well. So already started with a certain trigger or a certain direction, and then our environment then either anchors that or shifts it somewhere else.
I'd like to add on that too a little bit, if I could, Alan. What's so important to, especially as we're going through our own healing journeys or working through retraining, because really we're reprogramming our brain and our belief systems. And what's so important is comparison kills. Okay, you can have 3 siblings live in the same house, go through the exact same thing, exactly what Melissa was just saying, and have completely different belief systems and outcomes in an experience, because we're different and unique. And this is one of the things that can really hinder our healing, our ability to change and grow and adapt, is by comparing ourselves and our experiences to others. Nobody can walk through life except you, uniquely you. I have an identical twin. We're 2 minutes apart. I can promise you we've experienced a ton of things at the exact same time, And our experiences are very uniquely different. Our recollections are very uniquely different. And the things we're working on and evolving and changing, there are parallels, don't get me wrong. There's lots of things in common with her and I, but there's also things that we're working through that are completely polarized difference. So it's so important as we work through our own journeys and our healing journeys, whether it's with our clients, our personal, our children, our families, is to space, like Anne said, create space and grace for people, because it's going to be different. And I think, you know, if I could share any wisdom or advice for anybody that's helping somebody go through a journey, leave your bias alone. You're not there to, you know, in part allow them to discover, because your experience is going to be drastically different. And never forget that you have the right to choose. Life is happening for you, not to you. And that's something we naturally, it's part of our protection. You know, you talked about that amygdala brain, the brain that's like, whoop, what do I do? Do I run? Do I hide? You know, do I freeze in place? Nobody will see me. That part of our brain is there to protect us. And one thing that we want to remember is, as we're working through healing, to just see things for what they truly are in this moment, in this time, and allow ourselves to work through those feelings to see if they serve us now. Because at some point, I love this story about the little girl that was like, I don't like snakes. And the other girl's like, not interested, could care less. They all had a different experience, but it was their brain too that was allowing them to make that decision. One was indifferent, one was nervous, and one was like, oh, I'm going to care for this. So trust that it takes time, but it's possible. It's all about choice. Every single time it's about what we choose, and we forget that we have choice.
Yeah. See, we talk about, you know, fear. I look at fear and I think, well, fear is a gift. If when you have because the fear is there to protect you, but if you are controlled by the fear, then it becomes a negative. But if you recognize the fear is there to help you, to guide you, etc., and you are in command of it, then it's a completely different thing. When you talk about siblings, I've got 3 sons, chalk and cheese, and I always say I'm still trying to figure out number 3. He's in his 30s. But each one, when they were born, because we're not talking about twins here, but boys that were born one after the other over a period of time, each of them were born with different memories in their genes, because their mother and I had different experiences up to the point of their conception. So our memories were all put in at the time of conception were in their DNA. And then, well, first child, you're always nervous about, you're worried about dropping them and all that sort of thing. As you get down to the end, get to number 3, it's like, oh yeah, throw them over your shoulder while you're doing other things.
Throw them like a football.
Maybe that's where I went wrong with number 3. I did that too often. But that's the thing to remember, is there is so much that, as you're talking about the brain and the neuroplasticity and everything else, the number of synaptic connections, there's more connections there in our brain than there are grains of sand on our favorite beach. It's incredible. You know, the mind is such a wonderful place. As you said, we only use about 10% of it, and we probably know less of it than the 10% that we're using. So there's still so much to be learned along the way. So
I just want to build on what Jenny said there too, that when you were saying life is happening for you, and I really love that saying, Jenny, because it allows us to step into a place of, questioning, big curiosity, and what can I learn from this, for starters? And that can take us out of the stress state where we're, if we're in the victim of why is this happening to me, but also for anybody that's wanting to do this deep emotional release work, that it does take courage. You do always have a choice. Even when I work with people, I'm asking them, is it all right for your unconscious mind to release this fear today? And if they say no, then we're going to stop the session, right? If the unconscious mind says yes, then we can move forward. But to also remember that those emotions that you have served a purpose at some point in your life, and were helping you at some point in your life. But we are actually like a cell phone that we update on a regular basis. We get the new iOS and we update our cell phone. Well, our bodies need that too, and we don't necessarily realize that. But if you come in for an update to update your operating system, you can get rid of those old tired things that no longer really serve you, so that you can move into the place of having, emotions that are serving you, having a, mindset that is serving you in where you're at today and who you are today. And we just need to make some room for it and get rid of the old stuff.
That's exactly right. So what's some advice? Let's talk about the actual process. We talked about how the mind works, etc., the memories that are passed down. And yes, I totally agree with you. Life doesn't happen to us. We don't, things that happen around. It's not somebody else's fault. It's how we've responded to it. That's scary for a lot of people to start with, because I can't talk about me. It was because it was a change of something that I wasn't aware of. It's something I hadn't tried before. So there is some comfort in being around something you're aware of, even if you don't like it. So it's that first shift, as you said, Melissa, it's having the courage to step into that. But it's actually to believe that there's something better there. Okay, I don't know what it is, but if I do step out of here, I'm going to have a different life, and hopefully it's going to be better than what it was before. So,
yes, don't get stuck in that mindset of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Because how do you know what the devil you don't know can actually offer you, right?
That's exactly right. So I look back at some of my past, and I think some of the things I was fearful of that I finally, I went through. And then I'm looking at it and going, why did it ever bother before? Why did I ever worry? Because I'm happy with who I am today, and I'm happier each day that I live with who I've become because of all those experiences.
Right.
Understanding their learning experiences as well, and being able to apply that in that way, saying, okay, it wasn't something that happened to me. It's something that I responded to. I responded to it because this is what I knew at the time. Now I know something different because I have worked through that. Now I can look at the next process with a new mindset.
Right. And I'd like to add to that. It's not simply happening for me, it's happening through me and for me. So when we see that our interpretation is how are we absorbing that and how are we integrating that moving forward, it becomes through me and for me. And a big part of that is having a growth-oriented mindset. So whatever adversity or unknown fear we encounter, we can say, how can I grow from this and become a better version of myself? And it can really be applied to any area of life, not just health. And then it kind of buffers us from the unknown or the ups and downs that come along any path of growth, right? Because when we have a growth-oriented mindset, we're kind of armored in a way with this powerful mindset of like, I'm going to get through anything. And I was just working with a client today, holding space, who's actually dealing with some fears of letting go of the past, feeling comfortable and safe in that, what this client knows to be, the comfort zone. And not knowing about stepping into the unknown. And so one of the questions I asked is, what if the best is yet to come? Like, what if, having the courage to let go of the past and feel the sadness and turn towards it can actually be the gateway into moving into your greatest version of your best life. And just shifting how this client was looking at the situation made all the difference.
And you'd find that well, Jenny, wouldn't you?
I would love to share too, and this is a hard thing. Like, we don't want to admit we're suffering because we're allowing it to happen. Right? I mean, I can honestly sit here and share that I've been in positions in my life where I'm like, it's external, it's everybody else, but I'm allowing it to happen. And that's a hard place to shift from, that we forget we have the choice. And some people get themselves so far into a corner that they actually don't realize that you can change every single situation that you're in. It's up to you to decide if you have the power. And I'm here to tell you, you have the power. I stayed in a work situation for years that was unhealthy because I felt trapped. The only thing trapping me was me. It was my mindset. It was my belief system. And I share that because I want people to see and know that sometimes we have to look at our own reflection in the mirror and determine what role am I playing in my own misery. When we're, the saying, when you're pointing one finger out, there's a whole bunch pointing back, right? Right. So I share that with grace and understanding that it's very hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes when you're overwhelmed. And that's why, like Anne said, Melissa, you know, and Alan yourself, if anybody is listening to this or watching this that's feeling that they are trapped or stuck, I invite you to take a bird's eye view, to change your perspective. There is always a third option. And what would be that one thing that you needed to step into to do to change the trajectory of your life, much like Anne was just sharing? The greatest thing you can do is make a choice. Once you choose, if it doesn't line up and work out for you, guess what? You're in a power play. Change your decision again, move, do what you need to do, but don't stay trapped in a life of misery and loneliness, because we've got one kick at the can in this form at this time. Whatever your belief system is, you're put on this earth to shine. You're not here to suffer. This is, I think, something that we, especially if it's generational, you know, Alan, as you were saying, we actually are not put on this earth to suffer. We are not. And if someone needs to hear that, I feel that right now, that somebody needs to hear that. You are not on this earth to suffer. You are on this earth to rise and shine your light. And there are thousands of people that you can work with. Find your person. Your person is out there. There is somebody that can help you and guide you through. And, you know, don't be afraid to take the first step. You can always change your mind. That's the beauty of being a human being.
Thank
And
you
I would
for
add,
having
find your
said that too, because one of the things is I've always worry about when we're having conversations, we've all been through things, we've worked with other people, but I'm always mindful of the person who's listening to this, who was at that point in the depth of their depression and other things that may be going on, and feeling like, okay, it's all right for you lot to be talking.
Yeah.
To actually pass that on to them. So thank you very much for Jenny for mentioning that. And
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and I was just going to add, also find your community, because we are meant to heal in community. And whether it be your Holistic Earth or the Campfire project, there are just so many wonderful communities that can help us through those, well, I like to call it dark night of the souls, that, you know, I personally have gone through one myself and know how hard it is when you're in that place. But one of the things that helped me emerge on the other side of that was finding a community, finding a support community, and helping to normalize some of the experiences we go through in life, you know, other people that really get it. That can be incredibly helpful, or just the one-on-one support, as Jenny was saying, can be powerful too.
And the one-on-one support, I think it is so powerful, because that person is looking from the outside. And when we're in it, it's very hard for us to come up and see the big picture all on our own. But when we can be guided towards that by someone who can already see it for you, that's what allows you to move through the process much more quickly than if you do try to do it on your own. And then having a support group of other people as well that have been through it, that understand you, that you connect with, that becomes your tribe. Because as Anne said, we're not meant to heal in isolation. We won't heal in isolation. We need community. Whether we're healing or thriving, we all need community. And that community is built of people who understand us, who lift us up. That's where we all get to thrive.
We all have that desire. We have a need to belong. We need to feel we contribute, that we're valued. And if we're on our own, we don't have that. And that's where people who are pulling back from other people because they're going through tough times, they're putting themselves in a position, and again, it's their choice, but they've chosen to put themselves in a position where they're leaving themselves at that disadvantage.
Yes. I'm actually just reading a book right now called The Big Potential by Sean Anker, and he refers to the gray man. And the gray man is that person that is in depression, that has chosen to isolate themselves rather than reaching out. So don't become that invisible gray man. Reach out, because you will come through the process so much more quickly.
That's it. Okay, so thinking more about the people who are listening and how we can what sort of suggestions, what other ideas do you have as well that we can share with people? Because at the end of the day, yes, we have great conversations talking about this and we share our knowledge with each other. As I said, I'm always thinking about the people who are listening. I just want to make sure they get a massive amount of benefit out of it.
Well, Alan, if I could I share something that just
Please.
keeps bubbling up for me? So if anybody out there is experiencing anxiety or depression, as we've talked about, mindset and turning towards those emotions is so important, but there could be some imbalances going on in the physical body as well. Which Melissa and I also serve clients around the health coaching piece. And one area I've found is the gut. And if the gut is out of balance and there's inflammation going on in the gut, there's going to be inflammation going on in the brain, neuroinflammation, which is causing that depression and anxiety. And sometimes it's very hard to get into a healthy, healing mindset when there's so much depression and anxiety that could also be happening on a physical level. So it's important to address not just the emotional, mental component, but the physical component as well. And the gut is a great place to start. And I also would love to shine the light on epigenetics because that's another powerful topic. And when we start to see that our genes are not our destiny, and we learn that we can change our thoughts and beliefs, we can rebalance our gut, we can rebalance our brain chemistry, all that stuff, it's so empowering because we don't have to live a life on medication, suffering and feeling like a victim to our symptoms. We can actually go back, clean things up at the root and come out better than ever. So I just wanted to kind of weave that in just to address that, not to leave the physical component out either.
And I love that you have, Anne, because if you hadn't, I would have. And I'm going to take that epigenetics just a little bit further.
Please.
That our genes, the component of that in that equation, I like to say it's our genes plus the environment we create inside our body as a result of our lifestyle that determines our health outcomes. And our genes are only 5 to 10% of that equation. The environment we create inside our body is 90 to 95%, which is really empowering because it means you have the power to change your health outcomes. You don't have to be resigned to the idea that, you know, my dad had heart disease, so I'm going to get heart disease, or my mom had breast cancer, so I'm going to get breast cancer. We now know we can change that through addressing our mental body, our emotional body, our physical body. And aside from looking at the gut, another place to look is nutrition, because there is a direct connect between sugar, which is in everything, and depression. So if somebody's struggling, just take a look at your diet. What are you eating every day? Have you got a whole lot of sugar sneaking into your diet and you're getting those insulin spikes and you feel good for a while and then you crash, and when you crash, you really crash? Because if you start to clean up your diet, you might also start to notice that, you know, some of those moods are starting to shift away. Some other foods that can be problematic are dairy and gluten as well. In some people, they're highly inflammatory, once again, creating inflammation in the body, and they can, you know, trigger depression in someone that may be genetically predisposed to it. So yes, there's a physical component, there's a nutritional component, there's a lot going on. But as Anne said, the great news is we can get to the root cause and we can truly help people come out of that gray man state and live in full color.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to add a little bit, if I could, for those that are listening right now that are like, I don't know where to start. I think that's, you know, sometimes can be the most overwhelming part of anything. It's like, oh my gosh, where do I start? I would really encourage everybody to take note. Everybody has some positive habits that they're already doing, right? So maybe they drink water every single day. Maybe they're dog walking. Maybe they're, you know, going for a run. It could be that they eat salad every day, whatever it is. Somebody has at least one healthy habit in a day, guaranteed. So in that case, what I would suggest is habit stack. So if you have your drink of water every single day and you're supplementing now because you realize your diet isn't supporting you, or you're trying to clean up your gut health like the ladies just were discussing, make sure that you stack it on a habit you're already doing so you're not having to reinvent the wheel. We don't have time. Melissa just shared how crazy our brain is with all this information that it's trying to process over and over and over again. So keep it simple and get very clear on your why. I want to talk about like deep rooted why, like emotionally connected why. If you can take the time to sit down and really dig into why you want to add this new habit or change into your life and get emotionally connected to it, that will become your guiding compass on your decisions, why it's a heck yes versus a heck no. So when you think about a deep-rooted why, I'll use myself, for example. I turned 51 this year, and I think I don't know why people don't like turning 50, but it's been amazing. I love it. What I do realize, though, is that my body is changing, which is not a bad thing, but I need to evolve with it. And my goal is to have a very strong, healthy, long life. I could care less if I have wrinkles and things sag and fall off and do whatever. However, I want to be mobile and I want to be youthful in my cells, in my body. So I had to dig into why. Back in the day when I would work out and try to eat good food, it was because I wanted to look really awesome in a pair of jeans. Okay, that's all that mattered. It's like, how do I look in my bathing suit and do I look good in a pair of jeans? If that is your why, it's not emotionally connected enough for you to dig in. There's no motivation behind that, because honestly, once you put the pair of jeans on and they fit and they look good, trust me, you're off your to Baskin Robbins for the next flavor ice cream, right? So get yourself really deep rooted into your why. And when you're at your why, start digging in. Ask yourself at least 5 times, why do I want to do this? And re-answer the question 5 times. And when I was digging into this about my physical well-being and the exercise I wanted to create and the routine I wanted to create around it, it stems to the fact that one day I hopefully will be a grandma, and I want to be able to run around with those kids in Disney World, in Disneyland, hiking, fishing, snowshoeing, and skiing down Whistler, your neighborhood there, Melissa. So that's my deep-rooted why. So when I don't want to get up in the morning to work out, guess what? When I'm laying there thinking about, do I want to get up or don't I think about the ability to not be able to play with those kids. And I get up. And I don't even have, like, my daughter, I just found out, is getting married, but we don't even have that in the wheelhouse yet. This is my driving force. Okay. So I encourage you, find your deep emotionally rooted why. It will guide you to the answers and the motivation that you need. And the cool thing about motivation is one day this tool, idea, concept is going to become a habit. And what's beautiful about habits, no motivation necessary. None.
Well, first of all, where you said a lot of people don't want to turn 50, I would love to turn 50 again, I can tell you. It's very much the case. You know, I used to be quite fit, but I realized when I was fit and I was bodybuilding and everything else, it wasn't for me. It was like, how did I look, etc. Now I got to that age, I'm in my 70s now, so it's like everything that was north has now gone south. And so it's all shifted around. Yes, I got the wrinkles and everything else, but I look at those wrinkles as being the journey that I've been through. They're my badge of it's my marker that shows me how I've gone through life, etc. I feel better than I felt when I was 50.
Yeah.
Because my mindset is completely different. So it's come down to a choice again. Yes, I should get out and exercise, and the word should is there. But as you said, unless I know why I'm doing it, and as you said, ask that why at least 5 times. Because when you ask the why and it comes back with, so I can do this, then that's just a means goal. When you get to it and you get to, I want this, this is why, because then you're getting to the point of what's really important to you. That end goal of why you're actually doing it. You're getting closer to the passion of, and once you've got that, as I say to people, if you've got that bright light of what you want to create so big and tall and bright, whatever's the little alligators on the side path, and that won't even bother you because you won't even notice them.
I love that. It's just about getting connected into that bigger why, which is so much bigger than the fear that creeps up. Or yes, I love that idea.
And I also love what you said about how you feel better than you did in your 50s now that you're in your 70s. And I tell people that all the time as well. We don't have to feel worse as we age. Society's kind of normalized that for us, that oh, I've got aches and pains or whatever it is, that I'm getting older and I'm going to feel like I'm getting older. And that's just a fact of life. That isn't a fact of life. That's, again, the mindset and the belief. And we can absolutely change that up. And like you, I feel better than I did 20 years ago because I've learned so much, grown so much, and implemented change in my life because I chose to want to feel better. And I'm going to be with Jenny. We're going to be out there in the centenarian clubs. That's my mission, right? And yeah, you too, Anne. And we don't have to, accept aches and pains and as aging as being normal. We can choose to say, what's my body trying to tell me right now? And what can I do about it?
Yeah.
This is definitely where we start to get to that, mastering our unconscious mind.
Yes.
Because until, if we don't have those goals, we don't know why we're doing things. We're just like a ship without a rudder. It's just going to travel all over the place. Having that passion, etc. I think, and also you said before, for people to go out and find people that they, find their tribe, the people they can, who can help them. But while you're doing that as well, I guarantee that whoever you interact with, even when you're going to somebody else for help, the interaction that you'll have is teaching them something as well, and they're growing from that as well. And I think that once I started realizing it wasn't just people helping me, but it was me helping people in return, that my whole feeling of belonging and everything else was just really cemented into place. And so being single and living on my own, I'm definitely not alone. I've got so much around me. I've always got the thoughts and memories, everything else that's happening in that, and I've always got joy. So by getting involved, not just getting the tribe around you who can help you, realizing that you are going to impact on them as well. What can you do in giving them? How can you be the best version of yourself in that process? They talk about fake it till you make it. Well, that originally came from a complete opposite, which was act as if. If you were a character actor and you were playing the part of a psychopath, you went and studied it. The moment you start playing the role, people think you are, because you're acting as if you're already there. And I think that's one of the things as well, is to look at who you really want to be. And then when you really feel that, because I learned originally, to change your thoughts was never going to be to think about the old thoughts and change the thoughts. It was about thinking about, how do those thoughts, what are the other thoughts you're having? How do they make you feel? Okay, what's the alternative way you would like to feel? But tell me all about that, using all your senses, as you were saying before, Melissa, with all that other power of our mind that we haven't used. Having those questions, your thoughts will align with that. Now you've got completely new thoughts, and there's no way getting back to the old thoughts. You can't go straight across. You've got to go back through your feelings, and you won't do it. Because why would you turn your good feelings into, oh, I've got to go and experience the bad ones?
Right.
No, you won't do it. I had a client who came to me with stomach cancer. He was getting his medicines or tinctures from a herbalist. They sent him to me. We worked together I took him through NLP processes, looking at the barriers and everything else, but also gave him massage with aromatherapies and sound therapies and colour. 3 months later, he reversed his condition. And when he said to me, I said, well, we're pretty well finished then. He said, no. I said, unless you want to come back for a massage. He said, well, when I came to you, you told me we're going to find out where the cancer came from. I said, I lied. I said, because when your wife brought you in, you didn't want to come in. Your wife convinced you to come in. And if I said, no, you didn't need to know where it came from, you would have been out the door. So I told you, yes, we'd find it where it came from, knowing that we would never need to look at it. And I said, because if we want to find out where it came from, we have to go from the way you're thinking at the moment, back to the way you're feeling, over to the old feelings. And before I could move my hand up to say, this is back to the old thoughts, he went, oh, forget it, we're done. And so and it was his power of his mind. It was the medicines he was getting to improve what he was putting into his body. The process of changing his thoughts. There were different chemicals racing around his body from the thoughts, because every thought creates a different chemical. And all of that together with his attitude to looking at what he wanted to create, moving towards that light, he couldn't see the dark anymore. So he was his own healer. I just facilitated the space.
Oh, I love that, Alan. I was just telling my client that today, actually, in holding space. It's like we create a container for clients and they become their own inner healer. They become their own inner healer. And it starts with our thoughts. So I love that. And then it's about having a vision pulling us forward that becomes greater than our past. And as you were talking about getting into the feeling of that, you reminded me of a term or an expression I heard once about not a visualization, but it's a feelingization. It's about getting into the feeling and like being in that feeling, and that way we're attracting that, back in.
And I think that's a very good analysis of it, the feeling itself, because that's where it all starts. Everything else flows from the feeling.
Right. Exactly. And there's so many ways to shift into feeling better. If you're feeling like crap, well, as we talked about, you can address it on the physical level. You can address it through the mind, through having a healing mindset, through the emotions. There's so many ways to really look at it and to get support. So, and I've often found the most powerful shifts in my life are usually what they call in functional medicine multifactorial. There's sometimes not one root cause. There are multiple root causes, and that's why it's so good to get support. So you can attack it from the physical level, you can address it from the emotional level, and even the spiritual level. And when you're looking at it from all those angles, the transformation is that much more possible.
Well, I think we forget that we have to believe it's possible. That's the core. This is the core. That's like the core golden nugget right in the middle. Our belief system creates our reality.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Jenny.
Amen, sister. And that is the most profound thing. If nobody leaves with anything else from this conversation, it's our belief system. What we believe to be true is our reality. And, it brings us back to siblings experiencing the same event and having a totally different outcome. Our belief system creates our reality. Our thoughts becomes our things. And it's so essential that we do, a check in. What are you really thinking? What do you truly believe? Do you believe you're meant to suffer? Do you believe that? Is that your truth? If it is, we need to change that. You have the power. This is the cool part. We forget we have the power. Just change it. I make it sound so flippant and easy, but realistically, to the core, it's that easy. If you're having a bad day, you can choose to have a good day. It's totally up to you. It's that black and white, which is bizarre to think about. It's so
when people are really stuck. Exactly.
Exactly.
And so I love that you said that, Jenny, because I love the saying that, and it's by Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it is such a simple quote, but it is so, so true. And so, in your health, in any aspect of your life, if you don't think you can heal, if you don't think you can achieve your goal, if you don't think you can finish the project, what's going to happen? But if you think you can heal or you think you can finish the project, what's going to happen? It really does come down to being as simple as that. And as we've all alluded to, we can change our mind. We can change our thought processes.
I've always said with everybody who's listening to these is go and have a listen to all the one-on-ones. If you doubt any of this, sit and listen to the one-on-ones. There's over 340, 350 one-on-ones, and not once has anybody in their stories not shown how they have grown through it. The things that they thought weren't possible became possible. As Jenny, you said that, well, at the end of the day, there is no such thing as reality. Everything's an illusion. So I always say to people, pick the illusion that you want and turn it into your reality. Because it's it's a decision. Get out of bed in the morning, stub my toe. I can decide it's going to be a crappy day, or I can decide, well, that was just put it aside and get on with the day. So that's the worst of my day. I think it's one of the Scottish saying. I think it might be, or an Irish one, that may the worst of your, or the best of your days, past days, be the worst of your future. So every day is always going to get better. And so
I love that. I love that. And so, I want to add in there as well that our bodies are so miraculous. They were not built for us to suffer. And they were built for us to be able to heal.
Yes. Yes, and one thing also I'll add real quickly, because I keep looking at that beautiful campfire behind Alan with the forest. And I was actually just blessed to be in British Columbia and spent some time hiking in the forest with Melissa, and just felt the healing benefits and the power of being in the forest. And there's a lot of research backed by this in Japan, forest therapy, forest bathing. If you're feeling really crappy and it's hard to shift your thoughts and your beliefs, just stepping into nature and just getting near the power of a waterfall or moving water or soaking up nature's beauty, that right alone can help shift your thoughts. And so I just would just like to add that there's so many ways to help, bring up that vibration, bring up that level of thinking just from the benefits of nature.
As you called it, soul food, and that it was even more nourishing than being in a church at times, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
for everybody, their spirituality is different. The way they want to be nourished is different, but it is powerful because it is so calming on our whole nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you that live in an urban jungle, take your socks off and go to a park. Put your feet on the grass.
Yes.
Anything that is created by nature will give you the energy. It will ground you to Mother Earth. It will connect you in. It doesn't, we're not all blessed. I'm like Melissa, I'm blessed. I'm surrounded by rivers and forests. And so, it's easy for me to get to there, but I know people that don't have that luxury. Put your feet, honestly, you can grow yourself your own patch of grass. Like, think outside the box, make your own little sandbox of grass. It's possible. So Earth will find you if you just open your eyes. It's everywhere. Have a plant in your home.
Yeah.
Nurture the plant in your home. And I just want to, I'm sure we're getting close to the end, but I want to share too a personal experience for myself. I had thyroid disease, which is Graves' disease, quite a few years ago. And I partnered with people and made a conscious decision to heal my body. And through support from westernized, allopathic medicine, naturopathic medicine, and my own mindset, I healed myself. And I've been in remission for years. And what's powerful about that is people say this to you all the time, but I did it. Anybody can do it. Right? I am no different than anybody else, but it has led obviously to my passion of mindset, because I literally physically healed my body, and I actually increased the strength in my eyes as well, ironically enough. So my prescription changed as well, which is interesting. That is an interesting thing. So I think that might be my next step, is see if I can actually fix my eyes altogether. But so
because the body doesn't heal just one part, right? There's healing going on all over the body because we're interconnected. So yeah.
So it's possible. It's possible. I'm just one of thousands and thousands of people that have done the same thing. But since you're here listening and we're a part of it, just know it's possible.
Well, as we've had with the title, Mastering Your Unconscious Mind to Master Your Emotions, I think we've really finished off on a great point there about the emotions and how we can master those. And that will also then go back the other way and change our mindset as well. When things happen around us, take time out to actually ask, well, what just happened then? It's like I have people who, as I said before, would be changing the way they were doing things. They were happier and everything else. And then I've asked them, well, because they originally came to me because I wanted to change their thoughts. And I go, have you thought about the thoughts? And they go, oh, no, I didn't do that at all. Because now, and then they stop and they go, oh, yeah, I am thinking differently. But as you said before, it's the feelings, and they spent their time in their feelings. So that's where the emotions are. So again, thanks, ladies, for coming along today. Anne, Jenny and Melissa, really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having us. It was a fun conversation.
Yes. Agreed. Thank you for inviting us, Alan.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll get back on more of these as well, because one of the things, as I mentioned before, and this is for everybody who's listening, we have done a couple of education sessions before where somebody who's come on, who's done their one-on-ones, been part of the panels, and have shared their knowledge on a particular subject and taught me on screen. Then we've put that back into the Campfire project for everybody to hear that. I'm asking everybody else who's done a one-on-one, who's been in the panels, who wants to do that, put their hand up to do that as well. And the invitation is there for all of you three ladies. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And to everybody else, we will see you on the next campfire. Bye for now.